Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. And if you're new here, welcome. I'm Heather from Mindset Made Better. In today's video, I'm going to talk to you about how being alive is a special occasion. And this is something that I have truly embraced ever since my breast cancer diagnosis. So today I'm going to share my story, and I'll try to condense it as much as I can because I know medical stuff is a deviation from the things that we typically talk about on this channel. But I think it's important because it's through our darkest times or a major life crisis like this was for me that we discover what's really important to us. And we gain a perspective on what it really means to be alive that we wouldn't have had without facing something like this. Honestly, it's one of those life events that at the time feels incredibly devastating, but there's almost like an awakening and an awareness that's born in that darkness that you now have that you didn't before. But before we get into it, if you love personal growth and self-improvement, you've come to the right place. Each week we put out a video that goes along with our articles over on mindsetmadebetter.com. And over there we have daily posts of great quotes and apply those teachings to our modern times. So if you enjoy this kind of content, please subscribe to our channel. Today's quote is, "Stop saving things for special occasions. Being alive is a special occasion." Almost 3 years ago next month, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and this was at a relatively young age. I had found out through a mammogram, which had led to an ultrasound and a biopsy, and I had 0 symptoms. Ironically, I almost blew off my mammogram because I had been having them for years from a very young age because my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer when she was young too. And she doesn't have the BRCA gene, and I know now that I don't either. And I've always been really good about being proactive with my health, so I started getting scanned early out of an abundance of caution. And every time I went, there was nothing on the scans. And this time, I was super busy in my personal life. I had just moved across the country for my husband's new job, and I had only gone to the gynecologist to get a prescription for birth control pills, which I had been on for years, and I'll talk about that more in a minute. But I had just come back from the Bay Area, having tagged along with my husband for his training for his new job, and I was leaving to go up to Oregon to go hiking in a couple of weeks. So getting this scan done was something I thought I could just kind of put off until I had more time. But something in my gut told me, just go, get it over with, and then I won't have to worry about it. So I did. I went to the imaging center. Nothing seemed wrong when the tech did my scans. And I left not thinking anything of it. And I went on with my day, working and running errands. And then 2 days later, I got a call from the imaging facility asking me to come in for an ultrasound. Again, didn't think much of it. I had told family and friends, and many of them had had similar experiences and were like, hey, don't worry about it. It's likely nothing. And I wasn't really worried about it. I just figured that I would go, that they would look at whatever they needed to look at, and it would be fine, and there would be no other issues. So when I got to the facility, the tech that was doing the ultrasound seemed super nervous. She scanned my right breast and right armpit, and then abruptly left the room and brought back a doctor. And the doctor did the ultrasound again and asked me if I had any kind of injury to my breast. And I said, no, why? And he said that sometimes an injury from scar tissue can look different on a scan. After I got dressed, I was given a form to come back for a biopsy. There was no explanation or anything. So I asked to speak to the radiologist, who said that they had seen a small mass, maybe a centimeter in diameter, and I would need to have a biopsy. Now, believe it or not, I left there still believing that the chances of it being anything malignant was small. Even with my mom's history at an early age, I was still very young. I had some anxiety about it, but I thought I was fine. I had recently had blood work and everything was good, but little did I know, breast cancer doesn't show up on a blood test. And like I said, I had no symptoms whatsoever. When my mom was diagnosed, she not only felt a lump, but it was slightly visible on her breast. So the facility I went to got me in for a biopsy right before I was set to fly up to Oregon. And I went there and waited for what seemed like forever. And again, still believed that the confusion of what this was would be cleared up once I had the biopsy done and everything would be fine. Most ultrasounds and biopsies don't turn into a cancer diagnosis. The biopsy itself wasn't too painful. You're completely numbed up, and a needle-like device is put into the breast, and it scoops out a small piece of the mass, and then it's sent to pathology. They use an ultrasound machine to guide where the needle goes. And when the doctor performing it finished, I asked him, based on his experience and what he saw on the ultrasound, how likely, like percentage-wise, was it that whatever this is cancer? And I'll never forget what he said. He told me that it didn't matter because if this is malignant, it's 100% happening to me. Obviously, they can't tell you what they're seeing until the lab report is back, but that was when I became officially worried. The assistant who was with him was very somber, and I could tell that she felt sorry for me. And she told me that if they found something that was malignant, I've seen firsthand that it can be beaten because my mom went through it. So even after all that, I was still kind of in denial. I wondered what the chances really were that I actually had cancer. I believed the biopsy would come back negative and that they did the biopsy out of an abundance of caution because of my family history. So a day later, we flew out to Portland, and we had planned on driving out to Cannon Beach, visiting Tillamook, Astoria, and the Columbia River Gorge. And we were also going to take a trip across the river to Mount St. Helens. And I had the biopsy on a Wednesday, and I think Thursday, Friday, and Monday had passed, and I hadn't heard anything. And I've always kind of believed, hey, no news is good news, right? Well, late Tuesday afternoon, I got a call that just went to voicemail because we were out hiking around Munson Creek Falls, and there was zero service. And when I checked the message, it was just to call them back for the biopsy results. And by that time, the office was closed, so I figured, no problem, I'll just call the next morning. So the next morning I get up and I called and spoke to a woman who said, I am so sorry to tell you that your biopsy came back positive for invasive ductal carcinoma. I can still hear her exact tone and words, and it's like burned into my brain. And I was devastated, and I didn't even know what to say to her. I even found myself like ruminating for hours after I hung up the phone, thinking that maybe this was possible, that the office had accidentally mixed up the results and that I was really okay. That had to be it, right? I was in complete denial. So after that phone call and just being in utter shock, my husband asked me if I wanted to end the trip early and go home. But I wanted to stay where we were and just kind of process everything. Plus, I knew if I wasn't actively doing something, I would be all over Google researching everything under the sun related to breast cancer. And honestly, I'm glad I actually stayed because it was only for a few more days anyway, but it really helped me get my mind in order. And I tried to stay positive and was of the mind that we don't really know what we're dealing with yet, so let's not assume the worst. When we returned home a few days later, I immediately was scheduled to see a breast surgeon and got the pathology report from the biopsy. It turned out I was PR and ER positive and HER2 negative. The surgeon said that if you're going to get breast cancer, this is the one that you want to have because it's the most treatable. She told me to stop taking the birth control pills immediately, which I did. And she said it likely wasn't the cause because it was such a low dose, but that we didn't want to add any more hormones into my body because the cancer was hormone positive and it would basically feed on that estrogen. Now, I just want to say this about birth control pills. I don't really know if it was the cause of the cancer. It has a warning for it on the insert for the pills, and there are a lot of possible side effects. And when you think about it, almost every medication has some kind of side effect or risk involved. And many people take these for a long period of time, like I did, and they don't have any issues. Now, I was on it for years, and that's something I truly regret. I got on the pill originally for irregular periods, and I grew to like that predictability of having a short, light period every month. That was completely predictable. So, did it cause it? I don't know. There are just so many people who do everything right or are really healthy and they get cancer. I would just say that you really need to educate yourself on birth control pills and don't be afraid to ask questions about it if you're considering using them. But anyway, there were a lot of ups and downs between this appointment and finally having surgery. So I'll kind of summarize it. The first surgeon I went to was lovely, but her staff wasn't very supportive or helpful. And when you're dealing with something like cancer, you need to have a support team that is patient-centered. This doctor sent me for an MRI, which is pretty standard, as well as all these other scans to make sure the cancer hadn't spread. But when I went for the MRI, unfortunately, they found a cluster of lymph nodes that the doctor believed to be possibly another tumor, which she explained was either metastasis or a second cancer that needed to be biopsied. So I had another biopsy. She pushed having chemo first to shrink the tumor and lymph nodes, but I honestly just wanted it out. I ended up going for a second opinion at an NCI designated hospital, and that was amazing. The surgeon there told me that she was 75% certain that what was thought to be a second tumor was actually a disintegrated lymph node, and that she wouldn't know until she was doing the surgery. But their support staff was amazing. The doctor had a mammogram test done to see how likely the tumor was to come back. I ended up having a lumpectomy and an axillary lymph node dissection on my right side. Now, the tumor ended up being much bigger than what they had thought originally, but thankfully the surgeon did an amazing job. I have minimal scars, and you can barely tell that there's a size difference with my breasts. I mean, I see it, but I don't think it's as visible to other people as I think it is. After this visit for the second opinion, that was to me just dotting my I's and crossing my T's, my gut told me, go with this doctor, and I'm so glad that I did, because had I gone with the other doctor, she had planned to use a Savvy Scout, which is used for smaller tumors, and it would have been a huge surprise to her during the surgery, and they wouldn't have been as prepared. And that questionable mark on the scans that the first doctor thought was a tumor ended up being a lymph node that had been completely overtaken by cancer cells. So all told, the tumor was 2.5 centimeters, which was originally thought to be about 1 centimeter. And I had 20 lymph nodes removed, 2 of which were positive. And of the 2, 1 was the one that was kind of disintegrating. So I ended up being staged as a 1B partially because the outcome for positive hormone cancer is so good. My mammogram had come back as low risk for reoccurrence, so I opted to skip chemo. My medical oncologist felt like I should do chemo anyways, and I consulted with my mom's medical oncologist, who also thought it would be better to do chemo, but it just felt like the wrong choice for me. I spent a lot of time educating myself about it, and I wanted to be convinced that chemo was right for me, but it never actually felt right. And I've always been somebody who trusts my gut, so hopefully my choice doesn't end up being a cautionary tale for other people. But because I was hormone positive and HER2 negative, chemo would have increased my chances of not having a reoccurrence by only 5%. And I know for some people, that 5% means a lot. But ultimately for me, I decided to just go with radiation and tamoxifen and eating well and just changing my lifestyle. Both medical oncologists that I saw said that tamoxifen would really be the treatment that would work best for me, since I was pretty much 100% PR and ER positive. Radiation wasn't horrible, although I do have some fibrosis on my breast from the radiation, even almost 3 years out. And after radiation, I started to take tamoxifen, and it was a major adjustment for me. There's always some kind of weird experience or sensation that I have on this medication. But overall, my experience hasn't been terrible, and I've had and I continue to have some strange side effects, but they're manageable. And I know from reading message boards about this drug that a lot of women have some really bad experiences. So I'm just grateful that this is all that I'm dealing with. But with all that being said, it has really been only in the last year or so that I've gotten back to normal, whatever normal really is. And overall, I feel like as awful as this experience has been and would be for anyone, I also feel like I've gained a lot too. I'm someone who truly believes that everything happens for a reason, even when it doesn't make sense, and that these things are meant to prepare you for your next chapters. So, back to our quote, stop saving things for special occasions. Being alive is a special occasion. One thing that really stuck with me during my cancer journey was how it is only when I faced uncertainty about how long I had to live that I wondered why I was saving so many things in my life for a special occasion. I mean, I had been saving things for special occasions all my life, and most of the time I would forget about these things or they would go bad. I had saved perfumes, creams, hair products, clothing, decorative soaps, always saving things for the right time. And at the time, I had a cute wicker basket in our master bathroom of soap rocks, which are these mineral-shaped soaps that just smell magnificent. And I'll put a link to them in the description box. It's not an affiliate or anything. I just love these soaps. They're pretty and they just make me smile. And I had been saving them for a while, waiting for the perfect time to use them. So shortly after my diagnosis, I had this urgency inside me. I started to panic about not having enough time to do the things that I wanted to do, visit the places I wanted to visit, and have the adventures that I wanted to have with my husband. I worried about not being here for friends and family, and I wondered if I'd still be able to work as an intelligence analyst or if my health condition would make that impossible. I was flooded with uncertainty about the future. And then, all of a sudden, being alive was my special occasion. Cancer sucks. There is no getting around it. But one of the biggest blessings I've received from this path that I never wanted to be on was the unshakable internalization that our time on this planet is truly limited. We just don't know when our journey here ends. And it's up to us to make the best of every moment, every relationship, and yes, even our cute little things that we save for special occasions right here and right now. So what have you been saving for a special occasion? Let me know in the comments down below. But that is going to do it for this video. If you made it through the whole thing, thank you so much for sticking with me. I hope that you found this video helpful. And if you guys want to know more about my experience with breast cancer, let me know in the comments. Also, I'm going to leave a link to a book that I wish I had owned in the beginning of my journey. It's called Dr. Susan Love's Breast Book. And it's a book written by a breast surgeon, and the information in it is invaluable. It's like a breast cancer Bible. It would have saved me many sleepless nights early on if I had known about it. This is a doctor who really gets what it's like from the patient's perspective, as she is a cancer survivor herself. And she addresses a lot of the crazy things that you think about when you have a cancer diagnosis. It is totally worth the $20. But that is all that I have. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. And be sure to hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our weekly videos. Until next time, stay healthy, stay positive, and remember that life is precious and you are a perishable item. Live your life accordingly. We'll see you next time.